Building a business is not an easy task. And entrepreneurs, particularly in new and emerging markets, or markets in which they've identified an opportunity as a result of the industry economics or changes in excess demand and excess supply, have to figure out who the customer actually is. They have to really begin the process of understanding the demand, which is the willingness to pay, and how do they then develop among those that would be demanding a set of customers. So we're going to talk now about the whole issue of customer development. Customer development begins with searching. You begin to search to try to discover customers that are actually willing to pay for what it is you think you'd like to offer in the marketplace. Now, this offer and this discovery is an exercise in experimentation and hypotheses guessing, if you will, of the highest order. You have an idea that somehow there's a relationship between what you are offering to the marketplace and the benefits or the pain reduction or the problem solution that the customer is looking for. And you are trying, therefore, to test that hypothesis. How do you test that hypothesis? You go out into the marketplace and you ask customers. You're making educated guesses about it, but you don't know what the facts actually might be until you discover them. And this developing these customers and searching for them really involves an effort to try to validate whether your idea is right or is it wrong. And the process here is one of learning from customers about whether or not what you're offering makes sense. Entrepreneurs have to persevere in their effort, therefore, to validate these customers and see whether there's sufficient number of them that it's worth building a business, as we'll talk about in a minute. If you persevere, sometimes you may learn in your efforts that you don't exactly have it right. And that is why these guesses and experiments are so important, that you may have to pivot. And what do we mean by pivoting? That simply means you may have to change your idea, your hypothesis about what would work based on customer feedback. So an important and salient feature of the lean startup is understanding what the customer is saying and what it is he or she thinks their needs are, and reacting to them, pivoting, if you will, in a way where you stay alive in this whole search and discovery process to find some segment of the market that you can address. The revalidation process is just simply assuring that as you persevere and or have pivoted, that you have it right. Now, if you don't have it right, and if customers keep telling you that it is really not working, and you're not revising your offer, you will therefore perish. And this simply means is that you'll have to go back to square one, and or you'll have to leave the proposition on the table, undeveloped, without a group of customers that can follow. If you're successful at all of this, you would have developed on this back and forth and experimentation an offer to the marketplace. We call it the minimum viable offer that might be then the cornerstone of building a business. It would have a value proposition, and so now it's a question of assembling and acquiring the resources that are necessary to build and execute. Let's talk then of what it is necessary to execute this offer in the marketplace. Well, the very first set of things that are involved is trying to develop what I would call refined hypotheses. You've got something that works, but now you're going to execute. And execution means that you want to be sure that you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's in this whole process of making the resource complements in your supply chain. That is to say, the infrastructure that's going to be necessary to build the business is successful and solid. The execution phase then of building a company and working through these hypotheses, having created a set of customers, is daunting. And it means pulling together resources and administrative processes and approaches to make the enterprise successful in delivering the value that you think can be scaled. And therefore, the next step in all of this is what I would call having a structure that can support the strategy you've put in place. And that structure, therefore, has the people and the personnel and the systems that are necessary to execute and rapidly scale the enterprise as you build it. Getting to scale becomes necessary so that whatever fixed costs that you had to put in place can be amortized over a number of units or a number of solved problems. The execution phase is really the heart of this. Coming up with the ideas and even identifying minimum valuable offers are really quite possible, but you separate those that can do it from those that can't in the ability to make it happen. So I'd like to summarize by saying that you recognize right away whether or not you have a market. Your minimal viable offer can be discovered through paying attention to the industry economics and imbalances in demand and supply, looking for those gaps that would be opportunistic, and having identified those gaps, thinking about how you can, through the lean startup principles, get the market at sufficient scale and speed such that you can, over time, take advantage of increasing levels of demand and scale so that you can be successful in building the enterprise. Lean startup principles combined with an understanding of the industry economics and putting in place a clear strategy that answers the willingness to pay that customers may have for the problems that need to be resolved become important. And if you have a clear strategy, I think you'll be well served in building the infrastructure that will make you a successful entrepreneur. What we'd like to talk about then, next, is how you can think about the elements that are necessary in building the infrastructure and the model, the pieces that have to be in place in the resource acquisition and the resource identification aspect of building the enterprise.